A dream is a wish your heart makes. But celebrity comes from weird pictures your photographer takes. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Theater of the Golden Silence podcast. Your tickets have been taken, and the theater is filling up with mean old stepsisters and hunky Icemen. Well, not X-Men Icemen, just hunks with chunks of ice. So, hurry, get your headshots, grab your headshots, and grab yourself a seat. The show is about to get started, but before we roll on the movie magic, I just want to remind you to follow the Golden Silence Cast on Instagram for the most up-to-date information on this little podcast. And for all of you tweeters on the Twitter, the Golden Silence Podcast exists there as well. Just search for Golden Silence Cast or tweet us at Golden Silence 1. It is at these cyber spots where we let you know what films are coming up and how best to watch them. You'll also find fun historical pictures and show facts and news straight from the home office. Then we can reconvene here for a bit of infotainment amongst friends. Now, the marquee of this here theater is telling us that today's feature is the one and only Ella Cinders. This film is a 1920s Hollywood take on Cinderella, in case you missed this in the title, Ella Cinders. In this version, fairy godmother magic is replaced by a little classic Hollywood film magic. But don't worry, a shoe will still get left behind. But before we see our cinematic carriage turned back into a pumpkin, let's see what was going on in the world in 1926. On January 26, Scottish inventor John Logie Baird demonstrates a mechanical television system at his London laboratory for members of the Royal Institution and a reporter from the Times. On March 6, 1926, the Shakespeare Memorial Theatre in Stratford-upon-Avon is destroyed by fire. On April 7th, an assassination attempt against Italian fascist leader Benito Mussolini is attempted and fails. On May 12th, Roald Amundsen and his crew fly over the North Pole in the airship Norge. On July 23rd, Fox Film buys the patents of the Movietone sound system for recording sound onto film, which makes me have a bad feeling about the future of silent films, but who knows, I'm feeling good about them. On September 19th, Studio Giuseppe Meazza, aka San Siro, opens up in Milan, Italy. This stadium is home to soccer/football clubs AC Milan and Internazionale, or simply Inter Milan. And December 3rd, mystery writer Agatha Christie disappears from her home in Surrey. 11 days later, she is found at the Harrogate Hotel, and to this day, no one still knows what happened in that interval. Now, while major events happened in the world in 1926, there was a sad event in 1926 that affects us here at the Golden Silence Podcast and all you silent film lovers out there. We talked about this in some depth over a couple episodes, but this was the year that a major name in the history of this program has gone on and left this mortal coil. The sudden death of popular film actor and sex symbol Rudolph Valentino at the age of 31 caused mass grief and hysteria around the world. And that was on August 23rd of 1926. In Ella Cinders, our protagonist wins a contest to win a trip to Hollywood and a chance to be a superstar. But typically, when I enter contests, the only thing I hope I can win, and I'm not a greedy man, but the only thing I hope I can win is an all-expense-paid trip to the movie description. Ella Cinders is a 1926 American silent film based on a comic strip by the same name and, of course, based on the classic Cinderella fairy tale. It is directed by Alfred E. Green, Produced by John McCormick. Written by Frank Griffin, Mervyn LeRoy, George Marion Jr. Story by Frank Griffin and Mervyn LeRoy. Based on Ella Cinders' comic strip by William M. Conselman and Charles Plum, starring Colleen Moore and Lloyd Hughes. Cinematographer is Arthur Martinelli. Edited by Robert Kern. Distributed by First National Pictures. And released on June 6, 1926, at a running time of a crisp, trim, slim 51 minutes. Now, the original version was probably a little longer. I have heard there have been some missing reels, but the version I'm going on, and the version that is most widely available, is a shorter 51 minutes. Now, the version of the film that we will be checking out is from Amazon Prime. There are other versions, though. This film is in the public domain in the United States, so it can be found on YouTube, as well as a handful of DVD releases. The Amazon version has one big drawback. Well, most versions of this movie have the same drawback. There is no score. Much like Alice in Wonderland from a few episodes back, this has no score. Some YouTube versions have music that was added by the poster, but no official soundtrack or score that was produced just for this movie. The picture quality on all of these versions tended to be pretty similar. Not the best, but not terrible either. Kind of what you would expect from a 94-year-old movie. So basically, you're in equal hands no matter where or how you view this film. In 2013, Ella Cinders was selected for preservation in the United States National Film Registry by the Library of Congress as being culturally, historically, or artistically significant. But before we hop on the whats and whens of Ella Cinders, let's start with the whos. Colleen Moore. Let's start ourselves with the star of Ella Cinders, Ella Cinder herself, Colleen Moore. Colleen Moore was born Kathleen Morrison on August 19th, 1899, or 1900, or 1902. I've seen it a handful of ways in a handful of places, but roughly around that time, in Port Huron, Michigan. The New York Times describes her early career. She arrived in Hollywood at age 15 when an uncle arranged a screen test with the director D.W. Griffith. She wanted to be a second Lillian Gish, playing dramatic roles, but instead found herself playing pure-as-snow heroines in westerns with stars like Tom Mix. She later observed that she usually came out second best to the star's horse. In 1923, Moore cut off her long curls in exchange for a short bob cut at the urging of her mother. This was a great choice as it helped her land the role of a flapper, and with that, her career as an actress and fashion icon was born. Here was a chance for a girl who had straight hair, who was not buxom, and not a great beauty, she told an interviewer half a century later. A new type was born, the American girl. In 1926, 3 years after her flapper had burst upon the screen, Colleen Moore wrote, "Don't worry, girls. No edict of fashion arbiters will ever swathe you in long, cumbersome skirts. The American girl will see to this. She is independent. A thinker will not follow slavishly the ordinances of those who in the past have decreed this or that for her to wear." It was during the 20s that she became the Hollywood representation of the ideal jazz-age flapper. This came about in large part to one of her biggest successes with Flaming Youth in 1923, which, unfortunately, now is a lost film. Moore appeared in roughly 65 films between 1916 and 1934. During that time, she took an acting hiatus between 1929 and 1933. This was about the time that sound was being added to movies. After she returned, her sound pictures released in 33 and 34 were not great financially speaking, and she retired from motion pictures soon after with the conclusion of her contract. Moore would have this to say: 2 years ago, my motion picture career ended suddenly. Contrary to public opinion, my career ended because I had always planned that it would end when my contract was finished. But most unfortunately for my self-esteem, that contract came to its conclusion at a time when silent picture stars were making their talking picture debuts. I made 2 talking pictures, and both of them were terrible. They would have been terrible silent pictures, too, because the stories were weak and meaningless. As a consequence of the 2 bad pictures, and by abrupt retirement from the screen, people said I had failed in talking pictures. Next, we're going to talk about Lloyd Hughes. Lloyd Hughes was born October 21st, 1897, in Bisbee, Arizona. He wanted to be an actor early on, and his abilities and good looks led the way to an acting career. His first role as a leading man was opposite Mary Pickford in the film Tess of the Storm Country in 1922. Other movies he starred in included Love Never Dies in 1921, and one of my favorites, The Lost World, in 1925. In it, he played Edward Malone. Haynes was an actor that made the transition to sound and continued to work well into the 30s. Hughes married Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania native Gloria Hope on June 3, 1921. They had both worked on Test of the Storm Country together. The couple had 2 children, and they remained married until Hughes' death on June 6, 1958. Next, we're going to talk about Mervyn LeRoy. Now, this is an interesting name to pop up in a silent production. The Wizard of Oz, apologize for this little side rant. The Wizard of Oz in 1939 is possibly my favorite movie of all time. And when Mervyn LeRoy's name popped up in the credits of Cinders, I instantly recognized him from his producing duties on Oz. And LeRoy was born on October 15th, 1900 in San Francisco, California. His childhood wasn't particularly a cheery one. His mom left the family, and the department store his father owned was destroyed in the 1906 San Francisco earthquake. His father died in 1916, and the young Mervyn was on his own. It was around this time that he began to excel in show business. Between vaudeville and musical theater, LeRoy was making waves, winning contests and competitions. His cousin, Jesse Lasky, was a great connection LeRoy had, and he took advantage of it in 1919. Jesse Lasky was able to get an entry-level job at Famous Players Lasky. Was able to get him an entry-level job at Famous Players Lasky, and that was able to work his way up the ladder. First to lab technician, and then to assistant cameraman. All the while he was behind the camera, LeRoy was also taking acting side gigs. This Britannica article tells us a little bit more. After he outgrew those parts, LeRoy moved behind the scenes, writing gags, and sometimes more, for such Colleen Moore pictures as Sally in 1925, Ella Cinders in 1926, and Twinkle Toes also in 1926. In 1927, Warner Brothers signed him to direct, and he commenced this most important phase of his career with such low-budget efforts as Harold Teen in 1928, and OK in 1928 also. Hot Stuff in 1929, a comedy with Alice White, was his first sound picture. In his time with Warner Brothers, he was responsible for many classic films, including the famous gangster film Little Caesar. By 1938, he had taken his talent to the film studio Metro-Goldwyn-Mayer. It was here that The Wizard of Oz came to life. He produced the picture and also had a hand in directing, although it is uncredited. After a successful run at MGM, he would go back to Warner Brothers in the 1950s. Even though 8 of his films would get Academy Award nominations for Best Picture, he would only get a single nomination in the Best Director category. He was married 3 times. Catherine Siegel was his wife from 1946 until his death in 1987. LeRoy's death on September 13, 1987 came after heart issues complicated by Alzheimer's disease. He died in Beverly Hills. Now we're going to talk about the director of Cinders, Alfred E. Green. He was born in Paris, California on July 11, 1889. Green was a prolific workhorse with a career that spanned 5 decades. In a quick count of his filmography, I was able to get to roughly 111 films, from his first in 1916 to his final film in 1954. In 1935, he directed Dangerous, which got star Bette Davis a Best Actress Oscar. After a handful of successful films over the years, he retired from motion pictures, but still stayed busy directing some episodes of television. He married silent film actress Vivian Reed, and together they had 3 children. He died on September 4th, 1960, in Hollywood, California. Now that we have some biographical info on some of the folks behind Ella Cinders, the movie version, let's talk about Ella Cinders herself for a bit. She was born on June 1st, 1925 in... Wait. Yes, she is a fictional character in a comic strip. But the first national strip was run on June 1st, 1925. And a spot in the swanky VIP Sunday Funny Pages 2 years later. The comic was created by writer Bill Conselman and artist Charles Plum. It would last until December 2nd, 1961, which is a pretty impressive run if you ask me for a comic strip. Ross Eric Gibson of the Santa Cruz Sentinel elaborates on the creation of the comic strip. William Conselman settled in California in 1920 as features editor for the Los Angeles Times. Conselman's fascination with Hollywood filmmaking led him to create a modern Cinderella in the movies comic strip in 1925, with employee Charles Plum illustrating and Conselman writing. Conselman loved to play on words and reverse the name Cinderella into Ella Cinders for the wisecracking heroine. Conselman's plotlines went well beyond mere parody of the familiar tale. They were an inside look at Hollywood and movie making, filled with humor and drama. Conselman had written or edited numerous articles on filmmaking. He knew plot and dialogue from his childhood in vaudeville and musicals and the stage plays of his parents. The theater life had made his childhood a living fairy tale, transformed on stage into anything one imagined. He also found inspiration in the movies themselves, using cinematic devices in his comic strip. I know what all of you out there are asking right now. How does a popular comic strip make the leap from a newspaper funny page to a Hollywood film reel? I was hoping you'd ask, and I was also hoping Ross Eric Gibson would also have some insights into that too. So it's our lucky day, all. Ross Eric Gibson has this to say. First National felt the popular daily strip would provide a guaranteed return on its recognition factor alone. Head of production John McCormick produced the film and cast his wife Ella Cinders, who only happened to be a leading star of the 1920s Colleen Moore. The studio chose Frank Griffin and Mervyn LeRoy to turn Ella Cinders' story into a screenplay. The director of Ella Cinders was the prolific Alfred E. Green. Now let's get rolling on this little film here. Start with the opening title card. John McCormick presents Colleen Moore in Ella Cinders with Lloyd Hughes, adapted from the comedy strip by William Conselman and Charles Plum, an Alfred E. Green production. First National Pictures. The film opens with an intertitle setting our scene. The Cinders residence in Roseville, where the first bowl of wax bananas appeared on an American sideboard. Now, I genuinely don't know how to take that. Is that good? Maybe because of their fortune they could afford fake bananas? I mean, it sounds reasonable, so let's go with it, I guess, in lieu of any real answers. We open on a wide shot of a big, fancy house, the home of the Cinders family. And if you're at all familiar with Cinderella, you can guess the family breakdown and dynamics. If you are not, let's meet the family, shall we? Before we get any identifications, everyone is just yelling at Ella. Ella, as her family yells for her, is doing menial tasks. At this point, she is hauling 2 heavy buckets of water up a crap ton of stairs. Crap ton's architectural, right? I think I've read that somewhere. More yelling. Everyone yells at Ella. This is our official intro into Ella. Ella Cinders, the stepdaughter who slaves for the entire family, played by Colleen Moore. In fact, there's so much yelling to Ella that she can't decide which direction to go. All this haranguing from the stepsisters gives a good look at Colleen Moore's acting. She does a great job here, just with the facial expressions and movement of body conveys a humor that definitely throughout the movie we get to see a lot more of, which is a high point of this movie and a good reason to watch. Her first stop is to the bedroom of Ma Cinders. She is lying face down in bed. We learn Ella's father was the second husband Ma Cinders had talked to death, played by Vera Lewis. Ma is in need of a massage. Ella grabs a rolling pin and vigorously rolls. But it gets too vigorous, and the soot that Ella was covered in from furnace cleaning gets all over Ma. And Ma, surprise, surprise, does not take this well at all. Having been ejected from Ma Cinders' room, Ella is next accosted by one of her jerky stepsisters. Ma's first husband had been Alonzo Pill, author of the Follow the Swallow, and Prissy Prill, played by Emily Gertis. After the dust-up with Prissy, Ella, like any servant stepsister, has no time to rest before being summoned to evil stepsister number 2, where we find out Lotta Pill, always anxious to look her best, and the best is none too good, played by Doris Baker. These intros have to be my favorites I've seen so far. I think they're hilarious and definitely let us know the characters in short order. And the mystery of Alonzo Pill's backstory makes me want a prequel or something in the Ella Cinders cinematic universe. I want to find out about this guy and what Follow the Swallow was. And hopefully it may have been covered in the comics. I might have to dig a little more into the comics to find out, but it does make me intrigued for more of this backstory. Now, Lotta, who is still in bed, demands Ella make her breakfast. Ma Cinders is up now and getting ready for her day. Outside the house, the Union Ice Company horse and carriage is making its deliveries. And that Union Ice Company man is, we learn, Weight Lifter, Ella's best friend and champion, played by Lloyd Hughes. Yes, the character's name is Weight Lifter. W-A-I-T-E Lifter. That is good stuff. Weight rings the bell to let Ella know that the delivery is there. When she hears him calling to her, a smile lights up her face, and she runs over to open a window on the side house to see her beloved Lifter. But the window hole is covered by an ad. With no other option or recourse, Ella punches her way through and sticks her head out the hole. It isn't an ad for, I believe, a baby powder of some sort. We see her head on the body of a baby who's on the shoulder of her old-timey housemaid. Wait and Ella share a laugh at her current predicament. But Ma Cinders, she smells someone having fun and feels like it probably should be stopped. So she comes out, makes a beeline, and sees these shenanigans. She yanks Ella out and starts reading her the riot act. Wait leaves the situation as Ma continues to yell at our heroine. Ma wants to see what or who Ella was chatting with through the hole. What Ma doesn't know is that a worker has come by to put up a new ad. He is not paying attention as he rolls his glue roller thingy over the existing ad and also over Ma Cinders' face. Ella uses her super furnace dirty apron to clean her Ma's face, but that only makes things worse. Back in the house and cleaning up, Ma tells Ella, "You're shiftless, lazy, like your father was till the day he died. I was a fool to marry him." And with the face full of soap, Ella yells back at Ma, who leaves as Ella starts to cry. As Ella soapily cries, Wait sneaks in behind her and gives her the clamps. He playfully grabs her with his ice delivery tongs. When she turns and sees him, her mood instantly lightens. He tells her it's a shame how her family treats her. She talks before realizing her face is still covered in soap. She washes it off, and Wait grabs a towel for her. He pats her face dry, and we fade out. Our next intertitle tells us that every second Thursday, the Pollyanna Club met at the Cinders home and cheated one another at cards. Ella is again completing menial tasks as a bunch of old ladies, Ma Cinders included, play cards. Gin Rummy? Pinochle? Those are old lady games, right? No offense to the old ladies that play cards out there. Sorry. As they play and Ella cleans, Lotta Pill comes barging in with fabulous news. She shows a flyer to the assembled group. This is what it says on said flyer. Are you an actress? Gem Film Company offers expenses to Hollywood and a chance to star. Send your photo to the mayor and appear in person at the movie contest ball in Town Hall, April 1st, 8 p.m. Needless to say, the women are very excited by this prospect, especially Ma Cinders and Lotta Pill. Ma Cinders thinks Lotta is a shoo-in. Ella, meanwhile, listens from a distance. She sneaks up behind Ma and sees she is reading out of a book called The Art of Motion Picture Acting. Ma notices Ella trying to read and eavesdrop and shoos her away. A bummed Ella goes away, but her bummed-outedness doesn't stop her from hatching a plan. With the contest approaching, Ella decides to steal the book. A sleeping Lotta is holding it, but some top-level operation hand skills, Ella is able to sneak it away. She runs back to her room, crazy eager to unlock all of its secrets. Now we learn eyes are the greatest requisite to stardom. With this insider baseball knowledge, Ella begins a series of eye exercises. Flirtatious eyes, love eyes, crossed eyes. The cross eyes, the book tells us, has brought great fortune to certain moving picture actors. With this, we get a silly bit of special effects where Ella is doing different things with each eye. While meant for a giggle or chuckle, it kind of comes off a little disturbing, actually. Like a lot of these things, I'm sure they were hilarious at the time, but just a little creepy in retrospect. But according to IMDb, the eye exercise scene was done by cutting a piece of black paper and taping it to one half of the camera to it, so that one eye could be filmed making eye movements. The paper was then moved to the other half of the camera to film the other eye making its movements, so that the end result was both eyes going different directions all at once. Excited with her Inside the Actors Studio info, our Ella excitedly falls asleep. Next up, we learn that the photos for the contest cost $3, and the movie tells us that for 3 evenings, Ella minded the neighbors' kids at $1 per mind. In order to entertain these cute-as-a-button children, Ella works on her acting. She puts on her best Dorf routine, and the kids love it. Money in hand, it is time for some photography. The movie tells us when Ella got into her best clothes for the photographer, 6 moths laughed till they died. This is a fun bit here. As Ella enters, a bunch of snazzy dressed ladies are leaving. Everyone is getting pics for the contest. When Ella sits down in front of the camera, she tries all her poses. Most ridiculous, and her constant moving around draws... No, let me start again. When Ella sits down in front of the camera, she tries all of her poses. Most of these are ridiculous, and her constant moving around draws the ire of the photographer. The photog says he is taking the picture no matter what. At the same time, a fly that had been harassing Ella lands squarely on her nose. She tries her best to get it off. Her facial expressions go crazy as she tries to blow the fly off her nose. The photographer is looking away when he hits the button. The night of the ball, we learned this from the movie. The night of the ball, we'll fast forward a little bit, Ma Cinders and the 2 pills were going. So were Ella's last fond hopes. Ella watches her stepmother and 2 stepsisters leave. Weightlifter sees this and comes over to say hi. Ella says they won't let her go to the ball. Waite says he will take her. The forlorn Ella thanks him, but she hasn't anything to wear. The dreamy Iceman says she should wear one of her sister's dresses. Ella, realizing that's a good idea, runs in to change. She's going to the party, baby. Now, fast forward a little more. We're at the ball. The mayor, I think, actually no, not the mayor, the fire chief, who is another little bit of comedic fun in this movie. The fire chief gets on stage and calls for all the single ladies. All the pretty ladies. He wants all the pretty ladies lined up to be judged in accordance with contest rules and regulations. We got a long line of contestants, and Lotta does her turn past the judges. Now Ella and Waite enter the ball. Through some clever cue-hopping shenanigans, Ella sneaks into the line. When she gets to the judges' panel, they all look at her picture and start laughing hysterically. They all pass it around and keep laughing. Ma Cinders sees Ella and rushes over. She is yelling something fierce at Ella. The stepsisters start ripping the borrowed dress off of her. Waite steps in to defend his crush. Then everyone starts yelling at the judges. Ella runs off and, like any good Cinderella, loses her shoe. Waite picks up the shoe as he runs after Ella. Upset by the humiliation, Ella heads to the employment agency to find a new start and a new job. Unfortunately, the employment agency just places her back with Ma, and Ma drags Ella home by the ear. They pass a working Waite. Ma yells at him for his part in this embarrassing fiasco. He grabs Ma's hand off of Ella and the two start arguing, and Ella runs off. As the two argue, a marching band starts playing in front of the house. A car with the mayor and the fire chief and the whole entourage get out and inform the shocked Ma that her daughter has won the competition. The excited Ma ushers this whole group in, calls for Lotta, makes a whole big scene about Lotta being the newest movie star. Waite sits back in the background and watches. As Lotta comes down and the family celebrate, but not so fast. Ma is told it wasn't Lotta that won. And Ma says it couldn't be Prissy since she didn't enter. And she says she has no other daughters. So, who won? Waite chimes in that she does have another daughter. And he yells to get Ella. Ella, who'd been listening, comically falls into the room. And Ella is in disbelief as she is declared the winner. Enclosed is her cash prize and her ticket to Hollywood. The mayor suggests she give a speech. Emotions have overcome our heroine and she cannot muster any words. She is so happy she can't speak. Waite holds her. Ma can't take this anymore and stomps over to the judges. She pulls the winning picture out of their hands. She looks at it in disbelief. How can this picture have won? It's a picture of Ella making a goofy face with a fly on her nose. That's the picture that won, she asks. The fire chief responds, "Beauty means nothing. We firemen seen the best looking women at their worst. The movies need newer and funnier faces." Ma yells at all of them, tells them they're all bums, calls them all cheats. And at first, Ella takes this as being made fun of. But wait. Our wise old Iceman. Well, not so old, but our wise young Iceman sees the silver lining. Not everyone has the ability to make people laugh, he tells her. Now, the town of Roseville is doing their best to help Ella's dreams come true. They get her dressed up real nice, and now that she's all dolled up, she goes home to say goodbye to her evil stepmother and jerkwad stepsisters. They ignore her as she picks up her luggage and leaves. Now, this leads to some really good interactions between weightlifter and Ella Cinders. You could tell in this movie that Lloyd Hughes and Colleen Moore had some really good chemistry. And this upcoming bit where they're in the carriage together going to the train station is a great example of some of that chemistry they had. So, like I was saying, Waite picks her up in his ice chariot for a special ride to the train station. Ella says, "You've been so wonderful to me, Waite. I'll never forget you." Waite hands her a box. It's a fancy pair of silver high-heel shoes. As they leisurely make their way to the train station, the town anxiously awaits her arrival. As we see them waiting for her, it's this huge crowd of people. The mayor, the fire chief, everyone we've seen before, all the townsfolk are just waiting to give her the big superstar Hollywood send-off. But they're asking, where is she? She's running late. The train's about to leave. So as they're kind of moseying on over, Waite realizes that they're about to miss the train, so he pushes the horses to go faster, knowing that they may miss the train. They run into the crowd just in the nick of time, and the mayor reads from, I guess a newspaper article or a proclamation of some sort. It says, "Miss Cinders has known nothing but the beautiful things in life. She has been cherished as a fragile flower by her loved ones, and we hope the stem won't break before." Proclamations are continued as the conductor yells the all aboard and whatnot. Ella gets on and waves goodbye to the townsfolk and her beloved Iceman. The movie tells us that after the state of Colorado came the state of amazement. Ella never expected to have a whole car to herself. She spent the second day dreaming of Hollywood, we're told. So the whole part of the trip, she's in a train car all by herself. And she got so comfortable on the train car by herself that she dozes off and falls asleep. And she sleeps through the entire stop of the train in Albuquerque, New Mexico. And as she sleeps, all aboard coming on from New Mexico are a bunch of Indians, a bunch of Native Americans, all in their finest with headdresses, all looking the part. They're in full regalia, like I said, headdresses and all. The chief-looking fella sits next to Ella. The feathers from his large headdress tickle her nose as she sleeps, and he hands out cigars to two of his compatriots. They all light up, and they all puff away like smokestacks. The smoke awakens Ella, and she is shocked to see her empty car completely filled with Indians. The chief gives Ella a stogie. He lights it for her before she takes a couple big puffs. Sickness, this must be a powerful cigar, because sickness starts to come over Ella. She tries to play it cool for the benefit of those around her. Now, let me pop in here to opine on one of my many quirks. In real life, I don't smoke. I hate it. It smells nasty. Smoking's just not my thing. But I don't begrudge those who do. It's just not for me. And I don't particularly like the smell or all the associated side effects. But in movies, I think smoking is the coolest thing in the world. When used right, a character smoking can exude cool, and it can tell a lot about a character or scene. Here, the chief smoking his cigar looks like the raddest dude, and I want to hang out with him, and I want to learn how to smoke a cigar because of his coolness. But, anywho, the sick and woozy Ella leaves the car as the train pulls into Hollywood, the Knicker district of Los Angeles, the seat of the bosom-heaving industry of America. Another quirk, anytime you can work in bosom, that is a fine, fine line. With Ella's entree into Hollywood comes my favorite segment of the film. I am a sucker for classic Hollywood and seeing films that have scenes in studio backlots. This next bit comes fast and furious and gives us a lot of laughs as our heroine stumbles and bumbles her way up the Hollywood ladder. Now, a bunch of film and news crews await the disembarking train. A welcome to Hollywood sign hangs over them. Ella steps off the train, followed by the chief and the other Indians, other Native Americans. She waves at her onlookers. But this is a bit of an oopsie, because nothing ever nothing ever rolls smooth for Ella. It turns out the film crews are here for her tribal train friends, not her. Ella taps the lead welcomer on the shoulder and says she's Ella Cinders, contest winner. The guy condescendingly says, "I'll keep your secret." As the crowd disperses, Ella grabs her luggage, determined to find fame and fortune. So, she's already been stopped once. Turns out the camera crews were there to film the Indians, not the contest winner. So, she's not going to give up. She's got a dream. She's going to follow it. So Ella gets a taxi to find Gem Studios, the company that set up this contest in the first place. She exits the cab and sees a sign for Gem Studios. A gentleman on the other side of the fence sees her. She introduces herself as the contest winner. He regretfully tells her the terrible truth. "You poor child. That contest was run by a couple of sharpers. They have been arrested." He says she should probably go home. But Ella wants none of that for fear of being laughed at in Roseville. The heartbroken and humiliation Ella soon turns to steely resolve. The film tells us for days Ella haunted studio gates, eating less than an ant at an Armenian picnic, but still game. Now, I don't know how much food is at an Armenian picnic, but if Ella Cinders is any guide, I guess there's not that much food at an Armenian picnic, but let's keep going. The studio guard turns her away. She starts to think and comes up with plans and schemes. We will now examine each of these schemes and see how they went. Scheme 1. Sneak in with a family headed into the studio. That's a fail. Number 2. Steal a fake head, wear it on your head, and cover yourself so that the fake head is now your head. That's a fail too. This one was actually kind of creepy. Funny, but creepy. The head that she used gave me a chuckle. But while we're at this point talking about gatekeeping shenanigans, Ross Eric Gibson, who we've heard from earlier, gives us a bit about our favorite Ella hunting studio guard. This persistent studio gatekeeper was played by Mike Denlin, former Santa Cruz baseball player who went on to a big league career and then did vaudeville and movies. So it's an interesting little behind the scenes of people that are only in, it's a cool example of people that are only in small scenes can have cool backstories and cool life stories. Back to the movie now. Now she is running out of ideas. She decides to sneak in a door marked General Manager. Inside is an office with 2 dudes conducting business. Ella introduces herself. "I'm Ella Cinders, beauty contest winner. I'd like a job, please." As she talks, though, a light goes off and we find out that she walks straight into the middle of a filming set, into the middle of a scene. The director starts yelling at her and demands that she be removed. Our erstwhile security guard is back and gives chase. She runs onto another set. Again, she gets involved in a film scene, except she doesn't realize it. This scene has some good physical comedy. The actor she's involved with here is like a take on Charlie Chaplin, who is sort of trampish. And it ends with a hot bowl of soup to the crotch. To his crotch. Always a crowd pleaser. Even in the 20s, pain in the crotch was funny. Some things are timeless, folks. The next set we end up on has a director setting up a shot, asking if the lead actress is ready. We see her, and she looks kind of like Ella. Now, before we get a little farther here, the director that I just talked about setting up the shot is played by Alfred E. Green, the director of this movie. He is the director in this scene and the subsequent studio scenes. It's none other than Alfred Green himself. There's no one more qualified, I guess, to play a director than the actual movie director. In her continued efforts to escape, Ella enters a caged area. In this caged area is a lion which Ella accidentally electrocutes, which, needless to say, does not make for an especially happy kitty. Ella is being chased by the lion and blows past her acting counterpart and onto the set. The set that director was talking about a little bit earlier. But now the set is flaming. Lots of pyro going on here for this climactic scene being filmed. Her acting double dives over a small wall to avoid the oncoming lion. The director is loving the fearful performance Ella gives. "Help, please, a lion," she yells at the director. And the director says, No, it's your baby that's burning up." So, apparently this is a pretty heavy movie about children burning up in buildings, but Ella yells back, "I'm sorry, sir, but it is a lion." Ella tries to leave, but the lion is just offset, blocking her escape. The director is loving Ella's emotion. The director yells cut as the studio animal wrangler wrangles up the lion and leads him away. With everything calmed down, the security guard finally gets his gal. The director wants to know what is the meaning of this. The guard says she's been trying to crash the gate all day, while the director contends that she is working in this picture. The director wins out and the defeated guard leaves. Ella confesses, "I've never worked in pictures. I just sneaked into the studio. I'm Ella Cinders, the Roseville contest winner." The director replies, "Well, you win the red apple. You can radio Roseville that you'll be in my next picture." Ella is crazy, super excited to hear this. Meanwhile, back at the Iceman's house, which it turns out isn't really a house. It's a mansion. We see an older man and weightlifter. Or is it? The older man is reading a paper with the headline, "Local Iceman is son of wealth. Roseville agog with news that weightlifter is college football hero and rich. Our dreamboat local Iceman is actually University of Illinois Fighting Illini football hero George Waite." Waite tells his dad, who's the guy reading the paper, that he is leaving for Hollywood. Dad says, "First you disgraced me by turning Iceman, and now you've fallen head over heels in love with a nobody." The dad thinks that now that the truth about Waite is out, Ella will just want him for his money. Well, twist alert. Red Grange, who's one of the greatest American football players ever to step foot on the gridiron. But before starring at the University of Illinois, like our boy Waite, he was a part-time ice delivery guy, also like Waite. In fact, one of his nicknames was the Wheaton Iceman, referencing his time in high school. So that is another little inspiration that went into weightlifter's dual identity. But back in Hollywood, Ella is absolutely killing it. Her acting is so good she gets offered a long-term contract. But back in Roseville, the fire chief pops into Ma Cinders' house to tell her about this, and Lotta and Prissy he pops in to tell her and Lotta and Prissy how great Ella is doing and that she is putting Roseville on the map. They are all alerted to a mobile billboard touting Ella's next feature that will be playing in Roseville. Ma Cinders does not take this well. She doesn't really take anything well, and this especially. We see Ella filming a scene for her next film. She is scrubbing a floor, harkening back to her humble origin story, when a train pulls into the station they were filming at. The last person to exit the train is George Waite. He bumps into Ella. Their eyes lock, and the chemistry they had returns in an instant. They hug and kiss. He sees what she is doing, floor scrubbing and all, and how dirty she is. "Why didn't you let me know you were in want?" he asks. The two lovebirds embrace and talk as the train pulls away. George teases George tosses Ella onto the last car before hopping on himself. The film crew is befuddled as to where their star disappeared to. The director sees them on the train and gives chase. Ella tries to hop off, but Waite stops her. "I'm sorry. You see, I'm dressed for a part in a picture." Waite laughs when he realizes his mistake. He yells to the director, "Get a new star to do your scrubbing. We're going to get married." And later on, we're told, a new Iceman came to Hollywood. And we see a toddler, little baby Waite, in a child-sized Union Ice Company truck pulled by two dogs. The happy couple run over to their son, who is offloading ice from the truck. Waite shows him how to properly carry the ice with the clamps. They laugh and hug as we fade out. The end. Well, with the credits rolling, I should toss in my 2 cents. I really enjoyed this flick. I dug the humor, and as someone who likes puns, gags, and plays on words, this gave me that. Like Alice in Wonderland, the lack of a soundtrack was definitely a drawback. While the movie was fun enough to live without the score, the zany comedy definitely would benefit from an equally zany and fun score. My biggest takeaway from this movie by far is Colleen Moore. She was amazing as Ella, and I can't wait to see more of her work. I was definitely picking up Lucille vibes from Colleen Moore's comedy style. She conveyed so much humor and emotion in her face. She would have made a killing in the sitcom world, for sure. Now that you know how I feel about Ella Cinders, let's check in with our favorite New York Times negative Nancy, Mordaunt Hall. One of these days, I'll find a positive review, but that day is not today. This is what he said in his movie review article in the New York Times. From 1 or 2 points in this fractious film, it is obvious that it might have been an entertaining satire on the fairy tale Cinderella. Those responsible for it, however, apparently decided that while satire is all very well on Broadway, it misses fire on Main Street. As it stands, this production will undoubtedly create plenty of laughter, for it is filled with these wild incidents which are seldom heard of in ordinary society. This film is an example of what the fairy tale Cinderella might have been had it been left to some motion picture producers. Miss Moore is energetic and vivacious. Lloyd Hughes, as the ice-wielding son of a plutocrat, serves very well in his role, which does not call for his best efforts. So, that review from Mordaunt was from the June 7th, 1926 edition of the New York Times. I'll give credit here. It wasn't his most negative review, so I guess that's something. A step in the right direction. But with the theater lights coming back up, don't forget, the show is not over yet. Before we lay this episode to rest, it is time to find out where your favorite Silent Age stars are laid to rest. This is the segment where we join our beloved matinee idols on the other side of the cemetery entrance. The history, the art, and celebrity spectacle of cemetery exploration converge in Where Are They Now? Your guide to paying your respects to the stars who entertained us so much. On January 26, 1988, Walter Groshong wrote Colleen Moore's obituary for the Telegram Tribune. Here's an excerpt on her career and fashion sense. At the peak of her career, Miss Moore commanded $1 million salary and helped start a fashion craze when she cut her dark hair in a Dutch boy bob during the Roaring '20s. When she snipped off the curls worn by nearly all women of that day, author F. Scott Fitzgerald called it the most fateful haircut since Sampson's. David Middlecamp gives us some post-Hollywood bio notes on Colleen Moore in a March 14th, 2020 article on SanLuisObispo.com. After she retired from the movies, success in business followed. A savvy investor, she formed a television production company with War and Peace director King Vidor in the 1960s and published 2 books, including How Women Can Make Money in the Stock Market. Moore also indulged in her love for dollhouses, donating diamonds from one of her necklaces to make a chandelier for one lavish miniature home. Colleen Moore's fairy castle has been on display at the Museum of Science and Industry in Chicago, since 1949. Just as an FYI, that dollhouse was 9 square feet with one tower clocking in at 12 feet tall. It is crazy cool, and I hope to get a chance to see it in person someday. The house is visited by 1.5 million people a year. This house has electricity, running water, a radio, and a cathedral organ, and it was built in the 20s for roughly $470,000. On January 25th, 1988, Moore died after a long battle with cancer. She died in Paso Robles, California, at the age of 88. Now, this is the first cremation in Golden Silence history. While her ashes were scattered, you can still pay your respects if you make it out to Hollywood, California. You can find her star at 1549 Vine Street. She received this honor on February 8th, 1960. And with that, it is time to close up shop here at the Golden Silence Theater. But before we go our separate ways and we head back to the home office, remember to hop on Instagram and check out Golden Silence Cast on Twitter at Golden Silence 1. Let us here at the home office know what you thought of Colleen Moore and Ella Cinders, or what you thought of this here podcast program. I want and listen to your feedback. If you listen to this on iTunes, please rate, review, and subscribe. And thanks again to all you fine listeners for all your fine listening. And remember, the silents are golden, but the talkies, they're just a fad.